Hello and welcome to See Nobody Cares, the podcast where we talk about whatever we want because there's nobody listening anyway. I'm your host, Ollie Shouse. With me, as always, my co-host, Ballgame. How you doing, Ballgame?
I am great today, Ollie. Living the dream. Can't complain.
We got an exciting show today. We got to hop right into it. Creator of Knights vs. Samurai himself, Mr. David Dastmalchian. How you doing, David?
Hi, how are you, gents? Good to see you guys.
Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited. And it's a good day today. It's great. Thank you for shouting out Knights for Samurai in the introduction, because just this morning I'm listening to one of my favorite podcasts, Uncanny Japan, which is hosted by Teresa Matsura, who is one of the world's foremost authorities on Japanese mythology, Japanese ghost stories. She lives in Japan, and she is my consultant on Knights vs. Samurai and reads all of my scripts to just make sure I'm getting stuff correct,
Okay.
and helps with translation as well, because I always try to have the Japanese characters speaking in Japanese in the book. So that was just on my mind.
Excellent. Well, you've had a real fascinating career. You've done big blockbusters. You've done some indie stuff. Now your own comic books. Before we get into Knights vs. Samurai, what was your most unexpected twist you encountered in this creative journey?
For me, there's been so many unexpected twists, which is so wonderful. I have a philosophy of living my life with as much hope as possible and as little expectation as possible. Expectation is the fastest route to resentment and disappointment. Hope is a beautiful way to wake up every day. I have a lot of hope that I will be able to tell the kinds of stories that I want to tell. I don't expect to be able to do that. It leaves me not feeling like a victim when things don't go my way. It leaves me not feeling resentful when things don't go my way. It leaves me feeling like maybe disappointed and discouraged, but never without hope. And so, interestingly, so many things in my career have come together in the ways that they didn't seem on the surface to, like being in The Dark Knight as an actor. I auditioned for one of the clown bank heist guys at the beginning of the film and was utterly devastated when I found out that they were making this incredible movie in Chicago with the bank heist scene happening. And I wasn't a part of it. And I thought, oh man, dashed of my hope, but then ended up getting a much cooler, different role in the film with Count Crowley. I had this idea for a notion of a TV series or a film based around a news reporter who's been disgraced in the mires of alcoholism, who ends up getting a creature feature horror host gig late at night and turns out to be an appointed monster hunter, and ended up telling it to the right person who shared it with the right person, who gave me an opportunity to write the book as a comic book series at Dark Horse. And as somebody who's been collecting comic books my whole life, when I got the opportunity to write a comic book for Dark Horse Comics, I just lost my mind. And then when it went well and people really loved it and I got to keep making more of them, then more and more doorways opened and more opportunities presented themselves, which included, getting to write a lot of cool one-shots for different awesome publishers, and then eventually developing my own series like Knights vs. Samurai for Image, and then writing on other existing IPs like the Creature Commandos at DC. And now I've got a number of series. That's all unexpected twists that didn't come together the way that I initially had hoped. But because I didn't have a set expectation about them, I think I was able to really see the imagination and the creative, pivot that led to them being things that, to this day, you can now go get the trade paperback of Volume 1 of 2024's The Creature Commandos from David Dastmalchian in any comic shop. You can get Count Crowley's Volume 1, 2, and 3. Soon, Knights vs. Samurai. Soon after that, the accessories. I mean, it's wild, you guys. I'm so lucky.
That is fascinating. And anything I take away from today is live with hope, not expectation. So anything I took from today, I'm taking that for sure.
Awesome.
I'm just going to tattoo that right here, I think. That's beautiful.
So I put up the first issue here. So this is Knights vs. Samurai #1. Let's start with the hook. So someone hears about Knights vs. Samurai for the first time, what would you say to draw them in?
The title. I swear, when I came up with this idea, you guys, it was a long time ago, but to me, it was like peanut butter and jelly. It was like, bread and cheese. Like, it just made sense. For me, it's peanut butter and chocolate. Honestly, I have a mini fridge in my bedroom, and it's stocked constantly with Reese's peanut butter cups because that is my drug. That is my drug of choice, man. And I love the Halloween ones the most with the green base. They're so good. But I played Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. I used to love martial arts, and I never practiced it, but like the artistry around that. And then I became very obsessed with Japanese culture and language when I got into high school. And the mythological history in Japan was like so fascinating to me. And I love the warrior class history of the shogunate. And then, medieval English mythology, lore, witchcraft, dragons, the plight of the knights and warriors. Oh, I love that stuff. So, I grow up and I get to become a professional storyteller, and I start to look around me and I see a world in which our environment is degraded by human greed. I see a world in which the aristocracy is able to manipulate the proletariat by convincing us that we're different from one another if maybe we look differently, speak differently, worship differently, dress differently, present differently than one another. So I had this idea of like, what if I created a fictional reality where the environment is being exploited by the aristocracy, which is having a negative impact on more magical creatures like dragons, oni, witches, and then the warrior class, which if they represent just us as everyday people in the modern era, like if the working class and the warrior class are pitted against one another with false narratives, because it's really hard to get people to go die on your behalf if you really tell them what you're trying to do. If the truth is you're just trying to retain power, you're trying to conquer land, that's hard to get people to go fall on a sword for that or face dragon flames for that. If you say to them, these people are stealing from your children, these people are a threat to you can't really communicate with them. They look differently than you. That already tells you there's something bad about them. So I want to create this fictional world where English aristocracy and Japanese aristocracy have been able to kind of manipulate their warrior classes. And there's this fictional intersection between the two. And there's a very important resource. Really, that's at the heart of why the aristocracy is trying to get them to kill one another over this piece of land.
Sure.
And so that all made sense to me. And I go, who would like this? Maybe there's a shot in hell because he likes historical fantasy. He sees the potential outside of just capes and tights, a guy like Todd McFarlane. Now, I had no access to Todd McFarlane, but I did have access to a guy named Sean Canino, who used to be on the development side of stuff. When I was working on Count Crowley back in the day, he used to always say, oh, this would make a great TV show someday, blah, blah, blah. Well, Todd ended up leaving that company, now was working with McFarlane Entertainment, and I knew that. And so I called him and I said, I've got a pitch. I want to see if Todd would hear me out because I think this would make a great series. So he set up the meeting, and I thought Todd's that would bite on just the title, Knights versus Samurai. But the thing that he really responded to was this notion of the Hatfields and the McCoys, people who are, as humans, so much more similar than they realize, but because they look differently and they fight differently and they dress differently and they represent these different, nations, and they're being told lies about one another. He loved that. And he's like, imagine if we could have bloodiest, most violent battles, and you've got magic and all kinds of magical creatures. And then what if at some point they start to realize that maybe they're not one another's enemies? What if these knights and these samurai are somehow able to transcend the language barrier between them? Maybe through magic, maybe through just circumstances, maybe through being on the battlefield together. maybe they start to see something noble in one another, and they start to realize like, oh shit, we've been fed a bunch of horse crap, you know? So that's how it all came. And I had the pitch with Todd. He immediately, the thing that he responded to the most, which meant so much to me, was the emotional kind of level. And he could tell what a nerd I am for like history, and how I still think you can write historical fiction and throw, you know, some dragons, some witches, some demons, some oni, some, we have all kinds of critters in this thing. And we're off to the races.
Yeah. So you touched on a couple of things there. So two completely different cultures, right? You have the chivalry of the knights, the Bushido code of the samurai, and you brought them together. Did you have difficulty balancing that part of the story with the fantasy part, the parts you just spoke on? Was that simple? Did that flow easy for you, or did you struggle inserting that?
The flow of finding that nice balance between like these two very noble warrior classes, and the way they, you know, battle, and the way they face life, being so different and yet the same, I actually created a lot of wonderful dramatic narrative opportunities for me to be creative, and then inserting things like Japanese mythological creatures, because the beginning of the story takes place when the knights get to Japan and they have this encounter. I was able to feel really encouraged, and also I had the benefit and the resource of Teresa. You know, we're talking about the way that an English dragon would differ from a Japanese dragon, etc. That stuff flowed. The tricky thing for me in the comic book medium, as with any storytelling medium, it's the simplicity of having a very small cast of characters, maybe one hero or three heroes, and then a very clear villain and maybe some clear sub-villains. That's generally the way I've told a lot of my stories, and it's the simplicity makes it easy to focus on theme and pace and structure. I have two regiments of warriors and all kinds of other characters that I really feel are important and vital to the way this story is going to be told. So trying to find a way that I could introduce the audience without them getting lost, that was a challenge, the biggest challenge. And the other challenge was that dumb shit you don't think about when you're like going, how kick-ass is it going to be the first time I put a knight and a samurai squaring off on the battlefield, and I put my two favorite warriors, like, you know, if I have the Tiger Lord and the Dragon Butcher facing one another, and then I go, oh my God, a broadsword, snap a katana in half in like one hit. The design of their swords are so different that if they actually squared off in like a sword fight, the weight and the design of the broadsword would really fuck up a samurai sword. So I had to take some liberties, and I'm sure I'm going to hear shit about it from, you know, but that's okay. Cause look, I've got a giant, I've got a, you know, magic user. So people want to, you know, I try to be so specific in my detail of battle armor and weaponry, but like, that was the thing I had to make peace with early on. Be like, I have to let go of my desire to have such a hyper attention to detail stuff.
Well, let's just say greatest dreams come true. Knights versus Samurai gets adapted for the screen, whether that's the small screen, the big screen, and you get to play a role. You're gonna play a role. What role is it?
We haven't met him yet.
Oh,
For those who've read volume 1 of Knights versus Samurai, and spoiler alert, if you're going to now go get the book, and I really hope you will, I will tell you that there are future journeys to lands outside of Japan where both our knights and our samurai are going to go, possibly even working together. But I had this idea that because it's historical fiction, and obviously I get to play with the rules of stuff and lore and history. There's a land in Eastern Europe where, in the world of Knights versus Samurai, at one point there was a kind of conclusion that the humans drew, and this region of more monstrous European mythological beings, where it's like avoidance of one another. It's like, here's the forbidden forest. You stay out of the fucking forest. We won't go into the forest. But because these warriors are being hunted by both the English and Japanese armies, they need a place, a place to be safe, as they regroup. This is big plot reveals for the future, but just so you know, there's a character in a European mythological monstrous form who I would love to get to be in like a full prosthetic makeup and create a character that looks like one thing, but maybe ends up being something else.
Yes, man. Now I'm
Very
excited.
cool.
That's very exciting. So moving from Knights vs. Samurai, you're everywhere today. I feel like I turn the channel, you're on something else. Other than Knights vs. Samurai, what other projects are you excited about? Would that be TV?
Great. Yeah. So I'll start with the writing. We just announced the accessories, which my longtime writing partner Leah Kilpatrick and I are publishing with Panic, which is a new comic publishing company, and it's the story of the famous monster's sidekick. So Renfield, Igor, and a new character we've created called Mrs. Hyde. She's like the repressed, contained monster, but also genius who is unafraid, that lives within Dr. Jekyll. So the three of them have tried to sever ties with their codependent, toxic relationships with their masters and end up kind of crashing into each other. And they're like a new team of sorts, set in 1931 England. I'm very excited about that. I wrote a book over 20 years that is finally coming to publication. Cat Staggs did the art. It's a one-time book. It's a graphic novel. It's about 130 pages. It's coming from Z2 Publishing. Pre-sales are now available, and I have never written anything like this. It is, contemporary story set in Chicago, but that enters. I've always imagined what it would be like, and I believe in certain ways, almost allegorically, that all of us have an entire universe within us, an entire kingdom within us, and the state and the health of that kingdom, that universe, is so dependent on the way that we as individuals interact with the world around us and how we take care of ourselves psychologically, mentally, and how we can, grow. And so my character ends up falling through the eye of a needle into this realm that's been constructed for her, that is filled with all manner of magical creatures and challenges. And it's greatly inspired by Pan's Labyrinth and other films. And I wanted it to feel like an art book that, had storytelling inspired by Guillermo del Toro or Terry Gilliam and other people I love. In the TV space, I'm so proud of Murderbot, which is an adaptation of Martha Wells' fantastic book series, the Murderbot Diaries. All Systems Red is the first season. If you get a chance, please watch it. It's on Apple Plus, and it's a very special show that is in the science fiction genre, but it checks a lot of different boxes. If you're not a sci-fi person, just give us a couple episode tries. I think it's very funny, and it also very, very, very meaningful storytelling. Currently on the new season of Dexter Resurrection. So much fun. Some of the most fun I've gotten to have on a set, just straight up being weird and creative. The amazing live action adaptation of the manga sensation and anime sensation One Piece from Netflix will be coming to your screens soon. I play the incredibly bizarre and wonderful Mr. 3, who's part of the Baroque works. I shoot wax from my fingertips and can control candle wax. And the whole plot that exists in the manga and the anime that takes place in Little Garden is all going to be brought to like stunning live action life. I'm so proud of the show and being a part of it. I can't wait for you to see that. Feature film wise, currently I can be seen in Mike Flanagan's beautiful movie, The Life of Chuck, which is adapted by Stephen King's beautiful short story. I also have a movie coming soon that you're going to freak out. You guys are going to love it. It's called Dust Bunny from Brian Fuller. His imagination is just an insane place. And it stars Mads Mikkelsen, Sigourney Weaver. And in it, I play a hitman, a cleaner who is after Mads Mikkelsen. And it was very powerful and dynamic to get to be the person who's actually like Mads Mikkelsen's hiding from me, scared of me. That was very fun because that motherfucker is scary.
Everything he plays, he's terrifying. Even if he's not the bad guy, I'm terrified. Like
Movie, The Drinking Buddies. I don't know if you guys saw. He's such a good actor. I think that's what it was called. Maybe it wasn't Drinking Buddies. Shoot, Another Round. Sorry, it was called Another.
Okay.
Yeah. Beautiful. He did a film called After the Wedding, where he just plays like a derelict dad that shows up at his grown daughter's wedding after not having been a part of her life. He doesn't even realize that she's his daughter actually in the beginning. It's like the most beautiful performance. And then you watch Hannibal or, Casino Royale or The Pusher. And then in Dust Bunny, it's that nice balance. Because yes, he is a hitman and he's done awful things, but this little girl whose parents have mysteriously been murdered, sees this giant monster that exists in her home and under her bed. And so she hires him to kill the monster under her bed.
fascinating.
And he starts, there's a little bit of Leon the Professional, but in much more of a City of Lost Children kind of vibe.
Sure. Yeah. My brain went to True Grit, kind of a True Grit story. Yeah. Excellent.
Absolutely.
So one last thing before I know time is short. If you could leave the audience here with anything about pursuing their own dreams, what would that be?
I mean, I wish if I don't want to just say one thing, I'll say like 1 minute of things or maybe 2 minutes of things, is that if you can find the courage in yourself, arm yourself with a pen and a journal every day and try to free write even one paragraph to a page about how you're feeling and what you're thinking about, and then start committing, really think about what your goals are, if they're creative, professional, personal goals, and commit them to paper as often as you can. Because it's creating a contract within yourself. And that's not to make yourself feel guilty. You're not playing your own drill sergeant. It's because you care enough about yourself that you're willing to create that contract. It's the things that I've been able to accomplish and achieve in life, I haven't done by logging myself, like trying to get in shape, trying to be more healthy, trying to be more prolific creatively, trying to be the kind of father that I want to be. I used to try and do those things and improve on those things by like talking shitty to myself inside, like, you loser, if you got to do this, or you got to you do this. And then it became a transition that I'm still going through. We're trying to really internally talk to myself with the kind of kindness and love that maybe I just never even thought was possible. That's like, oh, you actually deserve to feel this good about yourself, or you really can do this thing, and it's going to be hard, but I can help you do it. So finding a way to be really kind and loving to yourself. And it's not always as simple as it sounds, because some people mistake that for thinking like, oh, that means I'm going to watch Netflix in bed all day and fucking get stoned.
Sounds like a great time, but no.
I think that tending to your mental health and wellness is the first step to, I nearly lost my life to it. And I never would be able to be as, free creatively or productive or successful as I've been able to be. And it's an ongoing journey. Try to look at things as opposed to having finish lines, as just being an accumulation of life and experience and accomplishment, and do something really nice for yourself today. Creating that space for yourself to make your goals and dreams come true, to me, looks much less like joining the military and looks a lot more like joining a monastery.
Beautiful. David, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. This was amazing. Everyone heard it. Knights versus Samurai, Volume 1. Pick it up. And David, I look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, man. Give my best to your kid and those garbage pail fucking baseball players. That's so rad. Hey, should I leave this running? I know sometimes they ask me on this service to leave it running for a minute, or are we good?
Nope, you're good. We'll end now. And hey, maybe we'll send some garbage pail baseball cards your way.
Do it. All right, guys.
Bye.
All right, later.